The swarm brought ruin to our world. Our proud people became refugees. And yet, they could not shatter our unity. For we are bound by the Kala, the sacred union of our every thought and emotion. Today, we retake our homeworld, and with it, our legacy.
Friends, and welcome back. I'm Anna Prosser Robinson. I've been hanging out with you all day here at the World of Warcraft European Road to BlizzCon, but now it's time for a little something different. And if I can tell by all the excited faces I see out there and all the lovingly made signs, I would say it's time for a little StarCraft. That's right, guys, we have a Legacy of the Void show match here on our stage right now. We have some very familiar faces that I'm sure you will be excited to see, both as players and as casters. That said, I'm very excited to introduce you to some of StarCraft's absolute finest. My friends up there at the casting desk, take it away.
Thank you very much, Anna. Hello, Prague, and welcome to the Legacy of the Void show matches, joined by, of course, no other than Kevin van der Kooi, also known to a lot of you guys as Rotterdam, and the guy back in business for one best of three. He's here to observe the Legacy of the Void show match. It is Artanis, of course, a long-time StarCraft II observer. Roddy, we've been having a lot of fun so far in Prague, and of course, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, of course, it couldn't be a Blizzard event without at least a little bit of StarCraft, right? So that's why we're going to do this Archon mode show match. Of course, a lot of people may be very familiar with StarCraft, have played it in the past, Brood War, you know, Legacy of the Void, or well, big, Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm, but Archon mode is something different, it's something new, something unique, and something we obviously love to show off.
That's right, so we're going to be playing a best of three between two teams very shortly. Of course, Legacy of the Void is being released on the 10th of November, just shortly after BlizzCon, and we're here to celebrate it with this best of three. An Archon mode is something kind of old to StarCraft because it has been there a long time in the past, way back in Brood War and StarCraft 1. It wasn't in StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, but it's made its way into Legacy of the Void. Roddy, talk to us a little bit about Archon modes.
Yeah, it's very unique because you're basically, I mean, you can always play StarCraft in 2v2, right? And that's been very popular in Wings and in Hearts, and it's been a lot of fun to play with your friends, you know, the more the merrier. But StarCraft can be very intense, and 2v2 plays out so different than 1v1, and often you watch these world-class players, you're like, man, it's so cool how their games go. I wish I could do all those things at once. Well, if you team up and you play as two, but then actually still you only have one base to manage, you know, maybe even you and me can team up together and we'll be decent together, Sean. You know, I'll do the micro part, you'll macro a little bit at home, and that's kind of the idea behind Archon mode. You still play a 1v1, but two players are controlling one race.
And we are going to have two teams, 4 players on stage, and the players that we have playing in the Archon mode are some of the best we've had in StarCraft 2. We have Team Liquid being represented by TLO and Snoot, who have traveled here to Prague to play for you guys, and we also have Team Millennium being represented by Lilbo and Marine Lord. And these 4 players that we have are, you know, 4 of the best in the StarCraft 2 scene currently. If you look at the World Championship Series, the staple StarCraft 2 tournament, these are players that perform.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, TLO, I've seen a lot of signs already in the audience, a lot of love for TLO. He's been very consistent within the WCS, so he's been a top European player for a long time. And then, of course, we've got the reigning WCS champion. Who could have ever thought we'd have a reigning European WCS champion? Well, it happened. Lilbo is here. And it's going to be very unique because all of these guys, they've been so competitive in Heart of the Swarm that they haven't really had a whole lot of time to get used to Legacy of the Void yet. So this is one of the first times ever we see these world-class players playing Legacy of the Void.
And here on the left-hand side is Lilbo, of course, as you mentioned, the reigning #1 outside of Korea, who's traveling to play at BlizzCon in the global finals at the end of the year. Just a 20-year-old from France making the dream real, playing for Millennia, fantastic player, and has really shot to the top of the StarCraft 2 scene as the best player currently.
For sure, and something that's very cool about this team that we're currently looking at, the 2 Frenchies, Millennium, one of them, Lilbo, is a Protoss player.
Yeah.
Marine Lord, on the other hand, is a Terran player. So what do you play then if you play Archon mode? I mean, preferably you squeeze in all the units, but you know, that's not really how it goes. You can't cheat that much. So they're gonna have to choose either Lilbo is gonna play a little bit out of his comfort zone, or it's going to be Marine Lord that will play Protoss.
So here is Marine Lord sitting next to him, who's the same age as Lilbo, but Marine Lord not quite as successful as Lilbo. But, you know, if we look in the crystal ball, this guy in the next year or so is meant to be that next top European Terran player, and he comes here to play alongside his French buddy. And one thing to note, Roddy, that is going to be working well in Legacy of the Void Archon mode, is these 2 guys are the best of friends. They hang out with each other, they have a lot of fun with each other, and they're happy to be playing with each other.
Yeah, and something that's very cool as well is that these 2 guys actually play a lot of regular 2v2 as well. They've won a tournament in regular 2v2. You know, 2v2 is not as competitive as 1v1, but every now and then when there is a tournament, these players have teamed up, so they're very familiar controlling, you know, their own base and then teaming up together.
Yeah.
Now they have to play as a team controlling one base, and obviously it's supposed to make you stronger, and it will as soon as you get used to it, but it's very weird at first because you want to do stuff, then your ally starts doing stuff, and you're like, hey man, like, what do we actually do? You know, who's doing what over here? So
hopefully they did talk to each other to know exactly what they're going to do representing Millennium and France. But of course, in Archon mode, you're going to need to have a couple of opponents, and they're going to be going up against Team Liquid. And these guys, I think everybody knows who these are. Of course, this is Snoot, who is one of the most consistent, most successful Europeans that we've had in StarCraft 2 over the last couple of years.
Yeah, he definitely holds the title for being the best non-Korean player for a year straight, maybe even longer. Eventually was up for debate a little bit. Maybe it's his teammate Bunny, and then suddenly the dude sitting on the other side of the stage showed up, Lilbo, who pretty much currently holds that title. Snoot has said it himself as well. WCS is what matters, and Lilbo, well, he's the only non-Korean make it to BlizzCon who's going to play at the biggest stage of the year, or biggest stage at the end of the year. But still, it's very cool to see this clash between the previous best player outside of Korea and perhaps the current best player outside of Korea.
And Snoot's ally in this is none other than the famous German player himself, of course, TLO, who joins us here in Prague as well, who I've been told is the secret commander behind all strategies leading into this. Of course, Mr. Creativity himself comes here, and we'll see what they're going to provide for us today, Roddy.
It's been so funny, because yesterday I was standing behind the Liquid boys while they were lathering it up a little bit. You can actually play Archon mode on ladder as well, and that's something that I think is going to be extremely fun for pretty much everyone out there, whether you're an amateur or a pro. That's just really fun. And these two guys, they were playing a little bit of Archon mode, and then they defeated two random guys on ladder, and then they said, really good job on the creep strat, TLO, that was sick. And Snoot looked at me, he's like, actually I did the creep strat, like TLO didn't do anything, and they just started laughing. They were having fun with it.
I mean, it's going to be, from what I've seen here, it's going to be Zerg versus Terran. So we're going to see Lilbo and Marine Lord play Terran. So Lilbo's going to be going in favor of Marine Lord here.
Yes.
And Tilo and Snoot, obviously both Zerg players, are going to be sticking to Zerg here in this Legacy of the Void match. And as you said, Roddy, I spoke to both of them backstage. Snoot's job is to spread creep. That's it.
Yeah, TLO likes to take control of most other things. It's really funny because yesterday they had a bunch of different approaches. Every single game they used a different method. They're like, okay, first I make units, you run around with them. Then it's like, okay, you can run around with the units and make a few if you really need them. It's like, okay, you do creep, I focus on the rest. And then at a certain point it's like, hey, let's just do a game, we'll both just do everything. We'll both just play this game like it's a 1v1, except with like some, minor exceptions of where do we go with certain units. And they looked at each other, it's like, okay, that didn't work out. So in the end, I think they found a nice middle way of splitting up the task. But I do think Snoot does a little more than just a creep.
He definitely is going to have to if he's going to be able to take on Lilbo. But which way do you see this going? Do you think it's going to be a friendly match between the two of them, or they're going to be going for the victory?
I mean, we already mentioned these guys, they are so competitive that they have been forced to focus on Heart of the Swarm for a long time. So I don't think any four of them in particular is a huge expert when it comes to the beta yet. So I think we're going to see a nice friendly match, and I definitely think we're going to see them showing up some of those new units that Legacy of the Void have to offer for us.
All right, well, down here, spawning on our first map of this best of three on Terraform, representing Team Liquid, it's of course Tilo and Snoot, who are going to be doing their very best representing Zerg today.
And over here on the left top side of Terraform, we've got the two Frenchies that are representing Millennium. It's Lilbo and Marine Lord.
Team Liquid versus Team Millennium, the two best StarCraft II teams out there currently. But it'll be good to see how well they do separate the chores and the jobs that you have in StarCraft II. As mentioned, there's so much to do as an individual player playing 1v1. Now you've got an assistant. And what better assistant could you have? Imagine you're a Marine Lord, like, I've got the best non-Korean to my right-hand side. What is he going to do to help me win?
Well, I mean, Lilbo likes to show off his micro, right? When he plays protoss and he's microing those Blink Stalkers. I'd say take control of the Marines and Marauders and the Medevacs and see how well you can micro when a bunch of Banelings are rolling your way, right? That's basically... I do think that that's going to be the approach for the Frenchies here. Marine Lord is obviously way more familiar with the Terran build orders, so it's more likely that he focuses on the strategy, and that as soon as there are a bunch of units out, that he will give control of those units to Lilbo to make sure he doesn't skip a beat at home, and hopefully Lilbo can do a little bit of damage with it.
All right, well, there are a couple of changes in Legacy of the Void, and we're about to see one of them. The Reaper has got an additional little bomb now. It's called the KD8 bomb, and it does 10 damage to units in a little area, so I'm assuming we're going to be seeing that come to play here, Roddy.
Yes, you can actually do a lot of very fun stuff with this new Reaper. It's a little bit better, obviously, because you can cause more chaos. There we can see it being planted immediately. And you can throw queens forward or backward. And in a weird way, sometimes your Reaper can even do a little bit of rocket jump. If you're waiting for, if you're standing behind a supply depot and you want to get over it, well, just rocket jump your way over it.
And it's just a 7-second delay on this little bomb, too. You can see it being planted there. And
you can push it way further off creep as well.
Yeah, and doing damage, 10 damage a time this, and this queen's quite far off creep.
Yep, and there's not enough energy yet on the other queen. It's actually going to drop a tumor now. That's surprising to drop a creep tumor when the other queen is low on HP. There is a chance that the Zerg brothers may need the energy to keep that queen alive.
Some changes that we'll see from Zerg, of course. One of the big changes earlier on is the Ravager. We'll see if that comes into play. Quite a common unit in the early stages of Zerg versus Terran, but nothing out of the ordinary. Sticking around with pretty much regular Heart of the Swarm openings so far.
It's a quick start, though, and I would love to see some of those new Terran air units make their entrance to the battlefield. And of course, talking about the Liberator. What I also love about the Liberator is the text package that came with it. Whenever you click on the unit, they always respond, right?
Yeah.
The Liberator has got some great lines. It's like, you looking for some freedom? And stuff like that. It's really funny.
Well, I hope to see the Liberator, but it is going to be a Banshee to start off with now. So the Banshee has changed a little bit. It does have a speed upgrade, but that's a lot later on. So we won't be seeing that too early on. But we do see the Roach Warren, an Evolution Chamber now finishing up for the Zerg team.
Yep, the Zerg brothers so far have done what they're very familiar with, and that is build a lot of drones. Just take those extra bases. They're not too worried about a great attack. Of course, this is an expedition match. It's very unlikely that Lilba Marine Lord would build 2 barracks in the middle of the map and just all in. You know, that's not really the way to please the audience. Even though winning is always great, it's better to win in style.
And I think both of them will be looking to get some style points today. And so far, the Reapers must have the edge, but we're about to see something else happen very shortly here. But both teams here just focusing purely on the economy, as you can notice. Zerg up to 3 bases now, Terran on 2. And the first bit of damage is going to really come out from the Team Millennium as the Banshee with Hellions and the Reapers going to join together on this 3rd base to see what they can get done.
And not a whole lot of units yet on the battlefield for the 2 Zerg players, Snoot and TLO. They have a couple of roaches on the way. They have the queens. 1 queen running very low on HP, but good save there. Who do you think it was, Sean?
I'm definitely saying Lilbo. They went in there. No, Snoot was the Zerg, Lilbo the aggressor. So decent job. But there is the Ravager, of course, as well. Just a single one at the moment.
There is a Spore Crawl in the main base, so this Banshee shouldn't be able to do a whole lot of damage. And this is, of course, a nice scenario as well. One of your players can look at that potential 3rd base location. You take care of the Hellions. I'll make sure that the Banshee doesn't do too much damage at home. It's just these small things. Well, normally, if this is a 1v1 game, you're like, okay, where do I look? Where do I look? Well, now you're playing Archon mode, so both of you can defend 1 base and be safe.
And we are going to see mech coming out from Team Millennium.
Uh-oh. I heard we only have an hour for these matches.
Might take longer than that.
Evolution Chambers going down, 3 of them actually at the same time. And they already have one on the way, so they're going for 4 Evolution Chambers. Am I seeing that right? A little bit of miscommunication, perhaps.
Which one of them's messing up?
It's like, I got an Evo, yeah, me
He's
too.
like, I'll get 2 Evolution Chambers, right? And he's like, I'll get 2 as well. And now they've won 4.
I mean, it's a really nice backup plan, though. We've seen this before as well. Recently, the first tournament happened. Some people may look at Archon mode and be like, well, this is very cool for casual players, but will this ever be competitive? Well, there have already been tournaments when it came down to Archon mode. Very recently, actually, a Red Bull tournament in Washington. It was very fun to see. We saw some crazy battles happen that you normally wouldn't see in your regular 1v1s. So there's definitely a good chance that this is going to be a semi-competitive mode as well.
Now this Terran force starting to build its strength as we've got more and more factories on the way, Rotti. And we are seeing Vikings added into the mix too. 2 additional factories here. I don't think he's only just now started the 3rd or got the 3rd in position. And it's going to be a nice beefy army here. And we'll see what the Zerg team are going to be able to do to combat it with. 4 upgrades at the same time here. Melee, Carapace, +1 range, which is good for the Roach and Ravagers, as well as Paling speed and Roach speed.
Which adds up to 5 even.
And now the
Lurker Den is on the way.
Lurker Den is coming to play.
Yeah, of course we have to see some Lurkers, right? A lot of Zerg fans are very happy that the Lurker is finally back in StarCraft II. Of course, one of the most important units in Brood War. It took a while before it made its entrance to StarCraft II, but here we are finally. During Legacy of the Void, it may actually be the Legacy of the Lurker, because from what I've seen so far, Sean, they are pretty powerful.
So the Lurker is a unit that can burrow underground here, and it deals splash damage in a direct line. The more you have, obviously, the more damage it's going to do. One cool little trick you can do with them is you can put them into hold attack fire. So they don't actually fire automatically if you don't want them to. You can wait until the entire army of Terran or Protoss is on top, and then unleash the waves of spikes that come from underneath the ground, and they do terrible amounts of damage.
Or even against Zerg as well. I've seen it being used in mirror matchups, because Overseer is not something you often bring with your first attack. Just later on if you're worried about burrowed roaches. And I've seen them being used. Lurker definitely a very cool unit so far. Both players or both teams, I would say, are playing this relatively conservatively. Let's just get our economy up. Of course, the economy has changed drastically in Legacy of the Void. You start with 12 workers, which speeds the game up quite a bit, and you also mine out the bases a lot faster, so expanding is more important than ever.
And that's what we're going to have to see from Lilbo and Marine Lord, is traditionally mech is a style that you need to play slow. You sit on 3 bases, you slowly take a 4th, but as you can see already at the 9-minute mark here, he's starting to run out of resources. In his main, and natural, so he is going to have to expand out into the middle of the map, which is where we're more than likely going to see the Zerg brothers here strike.
I mean, we were talking a little bit about the cruise spread. While the Ravager uses his new ability, well, actually it's a complete new unit, so the ability is new as well.
Yeah.
It's trying to do some area of effect damage. The Banshee is doing a good job in avoiding it so far,
Yeah.
and getting a couple of drone kills, but it's not really massive in this phase in the game.
Yeah, the corrosive wild are very difficult to hit air units with. It takes a couple of seconds for it to land, and this Banshee's done a lot of damage.
Yeah, actually, like in the start, I wasn't too worried. It's like, you know, a couple drones doesn't really hurt when you're on 70 workers, but the moment the Banshee gets 10 or 15 kills, well, then it's a different ballgame. Look at their creep spread, by the way. I mean, both of these Zergs are already pretty well known for spreading creep, but when you put them on the same team in a 1v1 game, this is just insane. Pretty much the entire middle of the map and the top side and the bottom is covered. The only thing that's not covered yet is the main base of Leoba Marine Lord.
Soon to be, though, soon to be.
Yes. I think on this moment, I kind of, I think if I'm Leoba right now, I'm looking over at my commander. I was like, are you sure that mech was a great idea against these two? Because we're going to have to fight on creep for the rest of the game.
And here are Vipers, same from Heart of the Swarm, but they do have a new ability, a new spell, should I say, called Parasitic Bomb. It does 90 damage over 7 seconds to a target, and also does area damage to units around it as well, air units that is.
It's really good. That makes it a lot harder for a Terran player to just sit back, make 10, 15 Ravens, and, you know, just take the game from there. You can't do that against the Neo Vipers anymore, because before you know it, you won't lose 2 or 3 Ravens against his ability. No, it does area of effect damage, so you're going to end up losing 10 Ravens, because you don't even know which Raven is the one that's affected.
Not too much new from the Terran players here when it comes to Legacy of the Void. They're just playing a pretty standard and very defensive game here, looking to expand further and further. Now taking a 4th base to the bottom left-hand side, but it looks for the first time we may have an engagement here. Of course, the Vipers still have Blinding Cloud, the ability to throw down on these units to prevent any range attacks. And also Dups can come in too.
This is one of the tanks get picked off immediately. There are a couple of Vikings in the mix, so you have to be very careful as Zerg play to make sure that your Vikings don't go, or the Vipers don't go too far forward, because they will get picked off against the Taurs and the Vikings perhaps, but so far both Taurs get abducted. Very well done by our Zerg team.
Nice little pickup there as they look to wear the Terran down a little bit. And there's even a couple of lurkers in here that you can see the spikes coming from under the ground, dealing max splash damage to these Hellbats. A scan goes down from the Terran to try to clear them out.
The only thing that's kind of worrisome right now for Snoot and TLO, our Zerg Archon, is that they don't have a whole lot of anti-air in the mix. They've got a couple Spore Crawlers, a couple Hydralisk, but you want to be careful, because if those Vikings get too close to your Vipers, ooh, what's over there?
That's a lot of units. There's 4 Lurkers, a Hydralisk, and a couple of Roaches just sitting up north. It's clearly a mistake, unfortunately.
Well, we don't know by who. One of the 2 Zergs is responsible for this rally point mistake.
And this is something new as well. Siege tanks in siege mode can be picked up and moved by Medivacs, which you can see the Terran players now starting to use a little bit to gain a bit of edge and room on the Zerg.
A couple of Zerglings in the mix as well. Vikings getting abducted. So far, they are really dismantling this mech play very well. Even though they, you know, there are Terran Archon that's going for all these mechanical units, the tanks, the Taurs, the Vikings, they are still maxed out on supply. And whenever you're maxed out, you pretty much always have a good shot at still winning the game. But the problem is they're starting to run pretty dry when it comes to money. They've got one more easy to take base, but even this base, it's going to be a nightmare already because there's creep everywhere.
It's got creep everywhere, and I think there's even a lurker just kind of lurking around, as you'd say, behind that mineral line, preventing any usage of it, of course.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard that one, Sean.
Well, you're going to hear a lot more of those in Legacy of the Void when this game comes out.
I can't wait for all of us guesses to make all those horrible puns that are so easy to set up.
The Ravagers are going to ravage this base, Roddy.
No.
Oh, and now we are going to see the Parasitic Bomb come down.
God.
Look at how much damage it does to these Vikings. Oh, what a beastie spell that is. And the Vipers come into play for Team Liquid. And that was huge.
And the hard thing when you go for this style that Leoba and Marine Lords are currently going for is that there is no HP regeneration. You have to repair all those units. So a spell being casted like that just one time, that already hurts so much.
Oh.
You have to repair all those Vikings. Look how low HP they are.
Yeah.
One more could actually kill them all.
And I think he has planted it now, and the Vikings are going to go down. All the tanks at the north there, considerably out of position. And this south base is a little bit under threat. There's a lurker on the edge of creep there that is dealing damage. It used to have a range upgrade. It no longer has that. It just directly does the
But
full
look at the
amount of
attack
range.
speed
here.
of this lurker. It's actually attacks so fast. You really have to be so careful.
Yeah.
A scan is going to have to go down, or maybe the missile turret does detect it. Yes, it does. It was within range of detection, but I mean, look at the bank that the Zerg players are slowly but steady building for themselves. They've got the entire map covered. They're picking up units one by one. And if I'm Lilba right now, I say we're playing Protoss in game 2.
And even a small attack here coming out from Team Liquid that go into the second base, and all of the Terran force is focused on defending at that south position, and a small squadron of units have made its way through the second base and into the main base where the main production line is. And it's a nice move here from Team Liquid.
Of course, the Vipers can use all those evolution chambers, which is a relatively cheap building, to gather energy a little bit quicker, and then you can use more of those spells, more ducks, more blinding clouds, and more of their special new ability as well, Sean.
Absolutely, and this is a good way to play, and you can see it coming down again. A couple more Vikings get picked out the sky, and the Team Liquid Zergs here are just strangling their opponents. They're down to 140 supply, they're struggling to build units and get units out, while the Zerg team can continue to get really good trades down here. You can see the evolution chambers that are built in the mix just to keep the energy high in the Vipers. They're going to go in for another attack. This time Blinding Cloud is used on these tanks. They're going to take these down really easily. And that seems like the last line of defense currently for Team Millennium as Snoot and Tilo push forwards.
Our Zerg Archon looked very decisive and very determined in taking game number 1 over here. I felt they were never really in trouble. They just did everything right. They made sure they didn't take any damage. There are a couple of tanks on the north side, but it doesn't matter.
GG is called, and Team Liquid go up 1-0 in this best of 3. And a good performance from them. It was very solid. They cut out the reinforcements, which is so important in Legacy of the Void to keep expanding. At that point in the game, Team Millennium very low on resources and struggling to hold the one position that they needed the most.
Yeah, and I think it's very hard to make that new style of mech really work. When we talk about mech, of course, we're talking about, Terran in general has 2 big play styles. One we call bio, where it comes to the Marines, the Marauders, even a couple ghosts in the mix here and there, and you rely on medevacs. It's a very fast and mobile army. Doesn't have a whole lot of HP, but it is very fast. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Mech, on the other end, short abbreviation for mechanical units, it's a lot slower, and I think especially when you play as Mariners, having a little bit of fun as well, probably realizing that that wasn't the best strategy they could have gone for. When you play Archon mode, your opponent has twice, the actions as well, so creep spread is going to be out of control. They're going to take bases. Defending against Hellions and Banshees, which is a vital part of a mechanical strategy, becomes a lot harder because 2 people are defending instead of just 1. So it's a lot harder to really hurt the Zerg where it matters.
Be interesting to see if Marine Lord and Lilbo want to switch it up and play Protoss in this next match, Roddy, or if they are going to stick with Terran.
I mean, since it is Legacy of the Void, I would kind of like to see a little bit of Protoss magic, especially because Protoss has been doing pretty well so far in the beta. Protoss, of course, got a bunch of new units as well. One of them is called the Adept, and all other races are still trying to figure out how to
stop them.
Adapt.
Oh, adapt. Okay,
I
Roddy.
set you up for the easiest pun ever, and you didn't do it.
No, I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking on that line. Lilbo and Marine Lord here. Wonder what they're saying to each other. Maybe a couple of French curse words.
No, they seem like they're in a pretty good
You're
mood,
so
though.
Bad. That's one thing which I can imagine Legacy of the Void happening is friends like this arguing over who played worse, and very similar to team games overall in MOBAs, in fighting day, anything.
Now, it is very funny though, because it takes some practice to get good at Archon mode. It's very fun, and the good thing about Archon mode is that if you play 2v2, you don't necessarily have to play it with someone that's of a similar skill level. Like in 2v2 in the past, I enjoyed playing 2v2, but if I play with one of my real life friends that's clearly quite a bit worse than I am, then it's like either playing against people that are way better or they're playing against way worse. But with Archon mode, even if your ally isn't as good as you can still make it relatively easy. Like I'll do the majority of the things, you control that medevac and stuff. So it's actually going to be a very fun social experience. And I look forward to playing, Archon mode with some people that I like in real life.
Me, hopefully.
Sean, you would have been good in any circumstance.
I need you to carry me through to Grandmaster, Roddy. I can't make it on my own. Together, we can do it together.
There is an Archon mode Grandmaster League as well.
Let's get in there, Roddy. But for now, let's check in with TLO, who's currently 1-0 up in this series, and on the stage with Anna.
Hi there, guys. Yes, I am indeed here with TLO from Team Liquid. TLO, there are so many signs out there with your name on it. How does it feel to see this crowd?
Yeah, well, the Czech crowd is amazing. I was waiting for an event to happen here because it's basically the neighboring country to the state I'm living in, and I heard a lot of good things about Prague, so I'm happy to be here, and it's great to see an amazing StarCraft crowd just for a single best of 3. So I believe you guys deserve a real event.
Yeah, well, this was a fun match to watch so far. Of course, you're not finished yet, but you did take game 1. Tell me a little bit about how you and Snoot are dividing up the responsibilities in Archon mode.
Well, so I do most of the micro, the macro, the build order, and then he spreads creep, mostly.
Yeah, we were calling it last night the coloring book strategy, and it looked like the map was pretty purple. You feel good about that?
Yeah, purple, good color.
Awesome. Well, looking at that first game, to get a little more serious, what do you think you guys did really well, and then what do you think you want to improve on next game?
Well, I feel what we did well is taking control over the map, constricting the Terran players to their 4 bases, and being able to be on the offensive later and just basically slowly tearing them apart without giving them an option to attack us. But in the early game, we struggled a little bit. The Banshees did more damage than they should have, and the Hellions maybe too. So we just need to focus a bit more on the early game.
I know that you guys are pretty focused still on Heart of the Swarm, so how does it feel to be playing in Archon mode, and what do you enjoy most about it?
Well, I think mostly we are still going to play 1v1, but the nice thing is that you have somebody to talk to while playing. So it's not only that you can split the mechanics, but you have 2 brains that can figure things out. So it's not entirely correct that Jens just spread the creep, because he also told me, okay, make more units, your supply blocked. So he was basically like my coach at the same time. So that's kind of cool, because you can either have 2 people being mechanically busy, or 1 person be the mechanic and the other the scientist.
Absolutely. You also have some illustrious opponents here. How does it feel to be playing against these guys?
Well, I mean, feels good to beat especially Lilbo in his own expansion that is going to be dedicated to protoss. So in the Zerg expansion, Zerg had a little bit of a tough time, so now it's going to be revenge, and we're going to make protoss life very hard.
I think you will. Now, do you feel confident that you guys will be able to take the rest of this match against these guys? Are there any words that you want to give to them right now?
Oh yeah, easily. It's going to be sweep.
Short and sweet, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much, TLO. Guys, I believe we're throwing it back to you at the caster desk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Good to hear the thoughts of TLO as he gets ready to jump into this next map. And the shared responsibilities, Snoot doesn't do very much, Roddy.
I think he was underselling his teammate there. I'm sure Snoot does a little more than just spread creep. But even if he only spread creep, he still did a damn good job at spreading creep.
The creep was beautiful.
Yeah, I know, beautiful creep spread. We saw some great abducts as well, and amazing blinding clouds. I think especially late game, right? Like, I'm a Zerg, I play Zerg sometimes. Protoss is my main race, but I like to play a little bit of Zerg on the side. But if there's one thing that I really struggle with, is playing Zerg super late game. When I suddenly have like Queens, Infestors, Ultralisk, and Vipers, I look at that army as like, hey, I'm a Protoss player. Like, I know how to storm, and my F2A move is working really well, but like, how do I control 4 or 5 casters right now? So if I would play super late game Zerg in Archon mode, you know, basically, you can have like, you do the Queen and the Ultra, and then I'll take care of the Vipers, and that would already make life so much easier.
Imagine if you just have perfect injects all the time in the late game. Obviously, it gets harder and harder the more hatcheries and more queens you have, but there's definitely a couple of things that we'll start to see the more we see Legacy of the Void played out Archon mode. These type of things are going to start to highlight themselves.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, you know, I often had friends in the past, like I said, it's really fun to play StarCraft with real life friends as well, even when they're not as committed or dedicated to the game as you are, because they've got different career paths. But it's like, oh, let's play 2v1. But, you know, 2v1 is always kind of difficult because they can both double 10 per units. Like, well, this is going to be hard to hold. You know, it's already hard to hold at once. But then, in the future, you can have 2 people that are maybe not at the same level as you, but they can play Archon mode while you can just play by yourself. And then it's kind of see if you can really defeat them 1v2. And that's something that I really look forward to.
It's like the next level of Grandmasters when you start playing 2v1 or 1v2 in that case against all these other players.
Yeah, I think that would be super fun. You know, imagine Flash playing 1v2 versus the best 2 Europeans.
Or me and you just competing against any pro gamer.
Yes, well, we're still going to be hard, Sean.
We are almost ready to jump into this next map, and we'll see what's going to change from Lilbo and Marine Lord if we are going to have a switch from race. Perhaps if they stay the same, a switch from strategy.
Yeah, I would love to see the bio that we mentioned before. Bio, mech, you know, the 2 main streamlined Terran strategies that are out there. And if you just focus a little bit more, especially on the map that we will be playing on, which is Desert Terminal, it's a map where drops could be very deadly. So we could potentially see a lot of Marines and Marauders, and maybe the power of Archon mode can actually shine a little bit more, while Marine Lord is macroing and Lilbo is actually taking care of the medevacs that are flying around the map.
All right, well, we are now loaded into game number 2. between these two teams. Let's jump into it. One last time, it is going to be, of course, the Legacy of the Void show match to celebrate the launch of StarCraft II Legacy of the Void on the 10th of November. Let's jump into it. Thank you everyone here in Prague for joining us for this, and I hope you've had a good couple of days so far and more to come. Roddy, let's do this, man. Let's jump into this.
I'm ready for it, and the players are ready for game number 2 as well, which is once again going to be played on Dash and Terminal, as we'll take a look at this beautiful stage. We borrowed it for, you know, a little bit of...
We borrowed it for a cheeky hour.
Yeah, for a cheeky hour, but it looks great, and I know that the players have been having a lot of fun as well. It's been a lot of fun just watching them compete and watching them mess around with Archon mode, especially because all of them, once again, are still quite new to Legacy of the Void, just like we are.
All right, we're in, Roddy. It's time to introduce these players up here to the top left-hand side, spawning into the game. And it's the green Terran player once again. It is none other than Lil Bum Marine Lord, representing Team Millennium. And can they come back in this series, Roddy? We'll see.
I have faith, especially if they do a slightly better job in just like choosing their build and switching up the tasks. On the right bottom side of Dash and Terminal, or at the 3 o'clock position, as you may will, we're looking at the main base of the 2 Zerg players who I know have a lot of support over here in beautiful Prague. Give it up for TLO and Snoot. So many signs of TLO in his audience. I'm kind of jealous.
TLO's got fans around the world.
For a single best of 3, people just decided to make a couple signs for him. I'm jealous. I did see a hashtag.
You've got a couple of signs up there, Roddy. Hashtag Roddy in the club. I've already seen that one.
I know, and I can't believe that made it even to here in Prague.
From Sweden to Prague, Roddy. We carry that hashtag with us. I don't know where we go next. I think it's BlizzCon, so we'll take it over to California with us as well.
I'll be very sad if I see a couple of those out there.
All right, so the first scout has gone up here from Team Zerg or Team Liquid. As such, as the Overlord's now gone across the main base to see this Reaper make its way to the other side of the map, where we do have 3 hatcheries down nice and fast because of the additional workers in the start of the game. You got a little bit more money, a little bit faster. Yeah, something we don't have personally.
Oh, look, he's going to push the drone to... Oh, man, that was a mid-air kill. Did you see that?
I did.
It's hard to morph into a spore crawler if you're flying, I assume.
And he can't do anything. He tries to go to a spore crawl there. The second bomb does go off. Of course, that is the KD8 bomb, dealing 10 damage and jumping units around. And this Reaper grabs a couple of Zerglings there too.
And has already done more than their entire mech build did in game number 1.
Yeah, he's done a lot of damage. And here comes the second one, and this becomes a bit of a nuisance for Zerg. Trying to deal with Reapers already in Heart of the Swarm could be a problem. And now these guys have got bombs pushing the Queen off creep.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like, just kind of figuring out what is the best place right now to push your bomb. Obviously, you want to do the damage, guaranteed, because the 10 damage does add up over time if you throw down 3 or 4 of those bombs. But at the same time, you know, putting them behind the Queen and making sure that it flies off creep for a little while, this Queen is going to have a hard time getting back onto creep, as it's so damn slow off creep.
And Team Liquid so pressured, they had to build a spine crawler to help defend against these Reapers.
Yeah, and this is a very tricky map as well, where one spine crawler doesn't even necessarily keep you safe. That's a very weird extractor to take as well. Maybe just a trick, I guess, because it was supply block. This is where you blame your ally for not building overlords.
Which one of them had that duty?
You've had one job.
I mean, in 1v1 you get supply blocked, it's bad enough. When you've got 2 people and you still get supply blocked.
Yep, Dario is like, I just gave him a compliment about making sure I wasn't supply blocked, and here we go.
Look what happened.
3 minutes into the game.
Supply blocked. Cheers, mate. All right, so the Roach Warren is coming down here from Team Liquid. And this is going to assist in any type of defense here against the Reapers and Hellions, which again, at the front door, doing damage to this Queen. Spine crawl a little bit out of position, and creep tumors are being picked off.
Oh, very well done there. A couple of drones getting evacuated very early before those Hellions and Reapers showed up.
Yeah.
And that's a very wise decision, because if that wouldn't have happened, well, those drones would have been toast.
I mean, without Zergling speed, they just can't do anything until this Roach Warren's finished up. It's about 90% now. We are going to see Banshees on the way too, to increase the amount of harassment that Team Millennium can do.
Yep, even this Roach Warren is a little bit exposed. It's starting to tank quite a bit of damage.
Yeah.
The Queens do have energy for 1 transfuse, I believe. The drones have been sent back, by the way, to base number 3.
Whoop.
So if these Reapers and Hellions would swing in...
Yeah, it's getting very close. Does not want to lose this structure. He gets a big hit onto the Queens. The Roaches now are coming in.
There's energy for a transfuse, right? And you don't want to end up losing any Hellions. Spinecrawler is going to be repositioned as well. Well done here by our Zerg Archon.
All right, so we have the lair on the way now. Quite a bit of income, but on the Terran side of things, it's time for the bio. Time to get the Marines in the game. game. And Stim upgraded immediately, and looks like TLO or Snoot, whoever's controlling the Overlords, is going to go in to see their opponent's strategy, to see the high amount of barracks being placed down.
At the same time, a couple of Hellions are going to swing in over here on the south side. They're going to pick up a couple of drones immediately. And once again, there aren't really a whole lot of roaches on the field. Our Terran Archon is doing way better already. They're definitely keeping check on the Zerg economy, making it a lot harder for them.
Bit of a warm-up game, that first one, and now they're feeling it, and they are doing well.
And look at the saturation, by the way, on the second base for our Zerg Archon. They've got way too many drones there. They had like 27 drones there. I guess they transferred a bunch right now to yep, there we go.
Fixing that small mistake.
It gets very tricky as well when both players start messing around with rally points. Look at that one roach. It's going to go in for the kill. One Hellion was one hit away, but doesn't get it.
The retreat was called. And it's just waiting for the production of those barracks to kick in now with all the reactor and tech labs that have been thrown down, mostly reactors here.
And of course, Dash and Terminal is one of those very drop-friendly maps. There's a lot of space around the Zerg main base, and it's going to be very easy to load up a couple of medevacs and just start flying them in. And once Terran finds an opening on this map, whether you play Heart of the Swarm or Legacy of the Void, the drop mania will not stop. They will just keep on dropping you. And if you don't have Mutalisk, well, it's an absolute nightmare to shut it down.
And hopefully Lilbo is the one controlling those to try and get some damage done. They're preventing creep here, which is trying to be spread to allow access for Team Liquid to get a fourth base option down, but it has been prevented. And a Banshee here doing damage to the Ravagers, who are trying to use, once again, their new spell, or new unit, new spell together, same thing, fell into your trap before, which is, of course, the Corrosive Bile. It does deal, a pretty decent amount of damage, but very difficult to hit, and to land it.
It's very nice when you get attacked by a big Bioball, though, and you just spam it 6-7 times. If the Terran looks away for one split second.
60 damage. It's a lot of damage.
It's an insta-kill on a bunch of Marines. It's awesome. And even against the Protoss army, it does a surprising amount of damage. I saw a couple of those balls go up, and I was like, well, my units have a lot of HP. I'll be fine. They didn't, Sean.
They weren't fine at all.
No.
Well, they finally secured this fourth base as more units have come out to allow them access towards it, but the pressure's not going to be up yet. They continue. Oh, the Ravager hit themselves there. They do, of course, do friendly fire.
That's also something I didn't know when I started playing Zerg for the first time. I just spammed it everywhere, and then I landed in it myself. I made the same mistake in Wings of Liberty when I started playing Protoss. I was wondering why I wasn't winning any games, and that's because I was storming my own army. I was like, since when do things do friendly damage? It doesn't make any sense.
Double Medivacs here, looking for an opening. So far, the defense from the Team Liquid side, it's been okay. They've taken a little bit of damage from the Hellions, but...
Now, with 4 Medivacs out, I really feel that this is the moment where the French Terrans should be able to find an opening, or the French Terran Archon, as of course Lilbao is still a Protoss player by blood. What? Oh, wait a minute. I was like, what is killed that Overlord?
A new rocket on the Medivac, something new to Legacy of the Void. No, it's just a Widowmine. And the main base is defended just by 3 sitting and waiting Ravagers with a couple of Banelings too. And it looks like a Medivac was taken out there. Perhaps the Corrosive Bile did hit and strike that Medivac down, or whatever it was.
The Zerg players are still up 13 workers, so if the Terran players don't find an opening real soon, it's going to be rather difficult, because then the Zergs will once again be out of control rich. Here we do see that first drop, that Corrosive Bio being cast. It actually landed on a couple of the Zerglings, but still makes it so hard for these Bio units to stick around.
Very difficult to hit, but when you do hit, we are going to, I guess, scream, because it's very unlikely to land them. The Terran army building up slowly but surely back at home. A lot of Marines, just Widowmines, waiting to strike once he has a comfortable army size and also comfortable upgrades. His 2-2 for the Terran Bio is very close.
We're going to see Lurkas once again as well for our Zerg Archon, and that's going to be quite cool, because the combination of Corrosive Bio and Zerg, I mean, that's just ridiculous. And everything is insta-death.
Hopefully see that come into play. They've got great upgrades too, as Zerg upgrading across the board here, as you can see to the bottom right-hand side. +2 attack, the Hydra range coming in, the +2 melee attack, +2 carapace upgrade, some defensive spore callers. Never mind.
I'm not sure what the idea behind that was. I don't think they were supply block this time, and they weren't maxed out either.
Come on, Corrosive Bile, hit that medivac. He's trying! No, he got it a little bit, Roddy. He did hit it a little bit.
It is hard. It's something that the Zerg players will get a lot better in over time as well, right? It's just like when we just started playing, it's like, well, a couple of these abilities, they may be powerful, but it's impossible to do it right. When, the combination of Blinding Cloud and Pongo Growth, it's something we looked at, it's like, well, that's great in theory, but nobody's ever going to be able to execute that well. Look at where we are and how did this
Oh,
one 3
gotta
years
dodge
later.
those corrosive vials. A couple of Marines do get one shot, and Terran's putting the pressure on right now. And all before the upgrades of Zerg complete. 3 lurkers do borrow, and you're gonna have to avoid the spikes as they deal high amounts of damage as well. And the Terran's gonna move its position down to...
At least doing a very good
creep.
job in like taking care of all the creeps, something they didn't do at all in Terraform, which was a lot harder with the units they were working with.
Yeah.
You know, also this time intercepting the reinforcements, a couple of Lings were going for a counterattack, and one poor Ling survived.
Got slaughtered, the rest of them.
I would hide in a corner if that happens to me and my friends. You run around.
Everyone dies but you.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm gonna hug the Zelnaga watchtower and hope nobody sees me.
Just let me survive until the game is over. All right, Terran again. Yeah, Team Millennium going to put some pressure on the Zerg here, and it's cutting up in between the 4th and 5th base. There are lurkers here. A scan goes down, and the Terran Bio taking quite a bit of damage here. There's roaches and Zerglings from the back. They pick up, and evacuation is called from Team Millennium.
That's just so hard to engage into, man.
Yeah.
A couple of Banelings, you know, you have to worry about Widowmines not doing friendly fire as well. The Zerglings run forward, and then you got those lurkers behind it, and of course the Ravagers still using their ability. It actually makes it very, very tricky for bio units to get a good engagement.
It's time for the Liberators to come into play. We do have 3 of them being built back at home here.
These bio units do require some freedom.
They need freedom, Roddy.
All right, 3-3 is on the way for both sides. So when it comes to upgrades, you know, these Archons are pretty damn evenly matched. The Zerg players are desperately trying to secure a 5th base, which kind of sounds ridiculous, right? 5 bases at the 11th minute mark. Well, the clock has changed. This would have been a 17 or 18 minute game in Heart of the Swarm already.
Yeah.
We're actually just counting in real minutes now. But at the same time, you really need it, because you look at the main base and the natural, it's completely mined out.
A lot of SCVs have gone down here by this counter-attack from Team Liquid. A very nice move by them. It'd be good to see the Liberators into play. Of course, the Liberator has a starport unit that's got missiles that does splash damage to air units, so it completely cuts out Corruptors, Mulus, anything along those lines. And there is an upgrade which allows it to go into Defender mode, which is a siege support. So it has a circumference area, which it deals a lot of damage pretty fast. And we'll see if they actually get the upgrade for it. I don't think they have yet.
It's great against Lurkers, right? Because Lurkers are just sitting there, they're burrowed, and then you can like use your Liberator ability to kind of siege on top of them, and you will be able to take them out in absolute no time. These bio units are going to be so careful, as a couple of Ravagers use their ability as well. Look at the amount of damage. Just 1 or 2 waves. The one Lurker survived. It was barely out of range, and probably got a ridiculous amount of kills.
Yeah, it probably got a lot there, and Zerglings come for a counter-attack here, and the Terran has been pushed back. Zergling's going to get into the main base, into the natural, killing a lot of SCVs here. The Liberators just weren't ready with the Defender mode. It's still being researched currently, and they were pretty much useless. They're just paperweights in the sky there for that attack, and it's given the Zerg an advantage.
Yep, and now there are Ultras on the way as well. We still got a bunch of Queens, so these Ultras are going to have excellent life support. We see the Spire going down as well. Maybe we'll see some Broodlords eventually, or just a couple of Corruptors to help out against those Liberators.
These counterattacks have completely ravaged the economy. A little more Marine Lord just don't have any money left.
And a little bit of multitasking as well. There's one single Lurker ravaging that mineral line. There's a Lurker in the mix over here as well. Yeah, I mean, Zerg Archon is playing actually extremely well. They were under a lot of pressure, but they never crumbled.
No, they never crumbled, and it's excellent teamwork here from both of them. A Lurker still, 2 of them still dealing damage here. And at the same time, the Zerg army in the middle of the map started to get quite a bit done. There is the Defender mode now activated for the Liberators. Anything that moves in that area gets destroyed. So it's very important not to be in that area when you're around.
Yeah, it's very smart to leave one behind, so it's going to be a little bit harder. A couple of these Lings will get picked up immediately. Not all of them, but, you know, a couple will go down.
Yeah, 2 go down, just slow fire rate, but 1 burst does a lot of damage, and Zergling's great against them in that regard.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of overkill to shoot at Lings. It's a lot better to shoot at high HP units because the Liberator does so much damage.
And Zerglings in the main base are going to be cleaned up eventually. A nice counter-attack from Team Liquid again. Look at the minimap, though. Look at the creep spread. Snoot in action.
I mean, like, it was, I even felt this game that our Terran Archon did a very good job in making sure that the creep wouldn't be out of control, but in the end it still was. So just a lot of compliments to our Zerg Archon over here.
And the Olympic rings of the Liberators setting themselves up here, and this is going to be an interesting fight. The Zerg actually move outside of the rings here, get forward, and now these Liberators in the sky doing absolutely nothing. They have to move and change position. The Terran retreats back to the planetary fortress, but is there too much?
Well, if this planetary fortress dies, then it's going to be kind of hard to take care of these ultras, and that's exactly what happens. Lilba and Marine Lord fall under 100 supply, only have 20 SCVs remaining as well. I mean, this is Hotel California for these ultras, though, because they can't leave.
They can't run in. The ultras are going to get picked off eventually, but they've dealt a lot of damage here. The last two at the front are going to go down. The Terran now needs to move forward to get rid of the other ones. There's even Lurkers, though, to trap these units. The scan's going to come into play.
Oh, man. Zerg Archon is out of control there. They're really showing us excellent use of these new units of Zerg, and at the same time still relying on a couple of those old beasts as well, the good old Ultralisk and the Queen's support, of course.
Team Millennium have to secure this base on this left-hand side. They have no money left. That's why they're going into defender mode all around here to protect this area. They have to mine resources.
Yeah, Zerg is kind of broke as well, though. We shouldn't underestimate it. The supply is a little bit deceiving because it's 70 against 132, but there is 69 army supply against 57. So when it comes to army supply, it's quite close. The biggest problem for Terran is they have no workers, but at the same time, Zerg has no bases to actually make use of these workers. Other than that gold base, but one Liberator should easily be able to shut down the North gold base.
Can Lilba and Marine Lord turn this series around? This Legacy of the Void show match here at the European Road to BlizzCon. As they push forward onto creep again.
Relentless with the counterattacks, though. Just Lynx intercepting all these reinforcements over and over again. And once again, our Terran team is even more broke than the Zerg team. So every unit does matter a lot.
Wow, those Lurkers in that position there, absolutely beautiful. Going to be very difficult to get close enough. You can dodge the spikes from the Lurkers.
If you're a boxer, maybe.
If you're a boxer.
As normal citizens, we cannot dodge those spikes, Sean.
No. You can see the Bio taking high amounts of damage from it. They stim forward to get close, but it looks like it is too much. And we are going to have a 2-0 victory from Team Liquid as Marine Lord and Lilbo call GG, and TLO and Snoot take 2-0 in this show match. A great performance, especially on that last map, and a great showcase.
Yeah, definitely. I think the second map was a lot more entertaining than the first map. I really enjoyed it. Seeing the Liberators, seeing the Lurkers do some very serious work as well. Not just in Game 2, even in Game 1. But we saw a little bit more of the Liberator in Game 2, and the Ravager. That's the one I was going for. So that was cool. And I think that Lilba is looking at his Archon mode, ally, Marine Lord, and be like, mate, we should have played Protoss. If I had a Warp Prism, all you had to do is just build a couple of probes and let me do the rest, and everything would have been fine. But no, you wanted to play Terran.
You wanted to play Terran, and we lost because of that. But it's a good showcase for both of these players. Everyone came over here and having a lot of fun in Prague. Lilbo is like, you kept me away from BlizzCon practice to play Terran.
Yes. This is really why I'm not playing Protoss. It's so funny, they didn't even look at each other. I think there is some promo over here in this beautiful French relationship.
You can imagine that Lilbo at the half-time there, being 1-0 down, was like, we should probably switch to Protoss.
Yes.
Let me have a go. Marine was like, no.
No, we can turn this around. We'll play Bio and things will get better.
Not this case, but Tilo, of course, and Snoot victorious here today.
Out of these 4 players, TLO definitely played the most Legacy of the Void.
Yeah.
Because he was eliminated off WCS a little bit before the others. So, he started switching a little bit before. Had a couple of days with some serious practice. I saw him play 20, 30, 40 games. He was very vocal about how much he was enjoying the game. And you could probably see that a little bit in their strategies as well. That the way, it just felt like they had a better idea of what was working in the new expansion. Then while Marine Lord and Lilbal, they were kind of just running with harder to swarm units for the majority of the time, and then eventually sprinkle in, a Liberator. Or...
Do you think they should have done something a little bit different when playing Terran there? Some of the new units, perhaps the Cyclone could have come into play when they played Mech originally, or what do you think are some differences that we could have seen? Obviously, you've mentioned that they haven't played that much Legacy of the Void. What do you think we could have seen against Terrans that have played a lot of Legacy of the Void?
Well, I would be lying if I said I was a huge expert when it comes to TVZ and Legacy of the Void, as we still been doing a lot of harder to swarm tournaments. But, the Ghost has been, it's been getting a couple of tweaks here and there, so maybe a couple of Ghosts would have been cool. I think Cyclones are a very cool unit, but they keep getting changed over and over again, so it's kind of hard to really put the Cyclone in one place now. Like, how good is it truly? One moment it's ridiculously strong, and the other one's like, well, I don't really see the use of this unit. And then it's like, okay, they're finding the middle ground. So I don't know. I think the idea of game number 2 was pretty decent, but they just couldn't find an opening because Zerg was playing very well. Maybe a bigger emphasis on a big drop in the main base, because the majority of the defenses of Zerg was at the south side. They've had Lurkers and Ravagers there. So even if there are a couple of Lings and Banelings in the main, I'd say still try to drop it, and then maybe things could have swung in their favor.
And it's great to see the synergy of all the Zerg units joining together as well, because there's a lot of units, there's a lot of combinations that you can do with the spells and abilities. And you know, once we do get deep into Legacy of the Void, as we're not quite there yet with its game release on the 10th of November, is that it's going to be fun to see the top tier Zergs play.
And I think what also could have been used, and we didn't really see, like Liberators are great in the main army, and they're great in controlling space in the middle of the map, but it's also an absolutely phenomenal harassment unit.
Yeah.
If you put a Liberator above a mineral line, well, evacuate it immediately, otherwise you lose all the drones. And I was a little bit sad to see them not send at least one Liberator to one of those mining bases, because even the Zerg team was running quite low on resources.
And it's pretty fun to see the game pace as well. It's much faster. The workers really jumping up the speeds.
Yes, something that I still have to get used to a lot whenever I play the beta. I've still been playing more Heart of the Swarm than Legacy because of all the tournaments we are doing, but it's a different game, and it really is. Like, if you think you know how to play Heart of the Swarm, there's no guarantee that your builds make any sense at all in Legacy, because everything has changed.
All right, well, it was an awesome show match between these two players, or two teams, should we say, and we're very happy here to have brought you the Legacy of the Void show match. But that is us done for StarCraft II here today. We're going to go to a very quick break, and when the show returns, it's time for you in the audience to get ready for the World of Warcraft semi-finals.